But thank you to those of you who are joining us tonight on this beautiful Cinco de Mayo, sunshine, summerish weather out there. You just give me a cue, Emily, when you think we're on YouTube. Oh, we are. It's streaming there. Okay. We got it, right? We're good to go.
Isis, you're checking YouTube for me. Could you put in the chat if you can see it or not? Because I'm getting sort of a video unavailable thing. Give me a thumbs up if you think that it's going.
I think that was a thumbs up. Good, we're good. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Theresa Widman and I am the Heal Well Focus Team Chair. And Heal Well is one of the teams that make up Live Well Kingston. And I'll be moderating our discussion tonight. And I wanted to just quickly introduce you to some of the other team members who you might interact with. You've already heard me talking to Emily Flynn, who's the Director of Health and Wellness at the City of Kingston. We also have Kristen Kessler, who's the Project Manager at the City of Kingston Health and Wellness team. We have Katrina Williams, who is from the Ulster County Department of Mental Health, Isis Benitez, who is from Planned Parenthood of Greater New York. And we have been some of the planning team for tonight's event. So I just wanted to introduce them. We at Heal Well were talking earlier in the year and thinking about the challenges that we're all facing, whether it's pandemic, politics, work, finances, family, health, or something else. And thinking about how we all face these circumstances and experiences and how they impact our mental health. So we wanted to create a forum for connection so that we don't feel alone when we're confronting and working through these challenges, and to begin a dialogue during Mental Health Awareness Month about how we can better support ourselves and one another in taking care of our mental hygiene. So we're hoping that you'll be contributing tonight. There will be opportunities for you to give anonymous information and thoughts back to us, which we'll share later. But if you do have a question for one of the panelists, you can send that question if you're on Zoom through the Q&A function, which you should be able to access. And if you're on YouTube, we are going to be monitoring that for questions as well. If you have just sort of a general comment or a question related to something not directed to the panelists, you can use the chat function for that. All right, so let me go ahead and introduce our panelists who are joining us this evening. Selena Pittman is a practicing psychotherapist here in Kingston. We have Allie Decker, who is a care management coordinator and social worker for the Institute for Family Health. Keziah Pierce is the LGU program supervisor at the Ulster County Department of Mental Health. And last but not least, we have Gavin T. Walters, who is the Vet-to-Vet Program Director at the Hudson Valley National Center for Veteran Reintegration. So we're very lucky to have all of these wise and experienced people here to help us talk about this really important subject. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with a question. And this question is related to really what we're starting to learn about the importance of mental health. And so the research really is starting to show us that mental health is so important as it relates to our overall physical health. And I wonder, what are the specific ways that mental health impacts our life and our physical health? And I wonder if, Selena, you wouldn't mind starting off answering that question. So the ways that our mental health impacts our overall physical health.
Okay, it's a complex question, but I'm going to start saying that mental health, in my opinion, it's really the way we call sometimes autistic spectrum disorder, I believe that mental health also is a spectrum. Where you fall in the spectrum is going to impact your life more. It can range from mild depression and anxiety to very acute clinical depression and psychosis with delusion. And where the person will fall in that spectrum is how his or her life will be affected, as well as the family and friends. In addition, your life will be further affected if you are challenged with mental illness and you don't have any access to services, or you don't have good food or heating room, or you are subjected to racism, or you are an illegal immigrant without services. So everything has a big, it could be exacerbating your symptom or could be the cause of your symptoms as well, right? So another factor is the person's relationship with the symptom, the level of awareness and the relationship with the suffering that the symptom produce, right? A person may be aware of the suffering and choose to ignore it, which in turn the symptom might continue. There are symptomic, meaning that the symptom is very aligned with the ego, with the personality, and sometimes the person suffering the symptom are not necessarily the person, but other the people that live around. So it just depends on how this is being experienced. Like, for example, in our experience, the former president was very egosyntonic, right? The symptom was very aligned with with his personality. Therefore, 50% of the country suffered his symptoms, right? But he was completely okay. So that it's an important, how it's going to affect your health or affect the health of others as well, right, around. So, but in other situations, when the person is suffering the symptom, right, it's just ego dystonic. So they are more eager to actually access services and say something's wrong with me. And there is more awareness of that symptom. So they are seeking out help. But we can say that the way it's going to affect our overall health is that when you are troubled with these symptoms that make you very uncomfortable, you can, first of all, you feel deflated, you suffer a lot of aches and pains, you, let me remember all because I work, you might be overdoing, skipping, sleeping, have bouts of mania, right? Where you basically don't, you are in a rush, you are drinking, you can be over thinking, substance abuse, low frustration tolerance, disease of all type, because you can get into your immune system and you can be, your immune system could be suppressed. So how you're going to be dealing with all these symptoms, heaviness, sensations, sleeping, insomnia, there are so many issues of how, the mental illness will affect. And as I said, it's not only
so Selena, we're having you're having a little lagging again. So maybe we'll have you turn the video off so that we can Oh, good. Yes. We can still see your lovely face.
Okay. So what I'm saying is just you suffer or the people around you can suffer as well. And how we are going to deal with that, the accesses of services, or how we are going to yes, help people and the community as a whole, is going to address the issue is crucial.
It makes me realize how broad and vast that question really was in your answer. So I thank you for trying to provide some insight to it. It kind of brings it back to this idea of, so many of the things that you said are creating stress, anxiety, and how those things directly impact our physical health. And I feel like that's at the root of some of this discussion that will continue. So I'm going to go ahead and ask another question here. And it's more along the lines of the factors that come into play that affect folks' mental health. And I'm sure all of us on the phone, I mean, on the call, have our own personal experiences, but I'd like to hear from somebody who's worked in the field to understand a little bit about the factors that are impacting our mental health. So maybe we'll start with you, Allie, on this one.
Hi, yeah. So it's so interesting because so many of the things that Selena was saying are also in regards to the factors. So we've got a lot of biologic factors, things that are, intrinsic biologically, and then so much of it is environmental, and a lot of the kind of research that's come out in regards to trauma and how trauma affects both mental health and physical health, and really the connection there. And so there's a lot of research and a lot of factors here that really affect one person differently than another. But in general, a lot of that comes biologic and environmental.
We're gonna do something a little fun here, and it's gonna take me a second to explain it. So I'm gonna just jump in now. This is our interactive portion of our panel discussion, and so Emily's gonna put up on the screen two ways that you can get information to us, right? The first one is to join by the web, where you can go to the website polev.com and you enter Emily Flynn 870, and you'll be then prompted with questions. The other way to do this is by text, which is what I have done in the past. So if you have the ability to text, it's very easy. You're going to text the words Emily Flynn 870 to the number 22333. So I'll give everyone just a minute to digest that, or a second, not a minute, to digest that. And if you're having any difficulties with that, you can go ahead and just pop your answers into the chat or into the comments, and we'll get that information to us. But we wanted to make this interactive to really understand what folks are going through. And so Emily's going to go ahead and we're going to present the first question to you. And so we're asking for you to think about some things, just naming a word or two that are most pressing concerns and stressors facing you and or your community. And so again, you can text it, you can enter it into the website, or you can put it in the chat if that didn't work for you. And so it's just giving us a little feedback about what we are all experiencing in our community. Part of this, the intention behind this gathering tonight is to see and understand what other folks are going through, and to perhaps not feel alone in the struggle. So some of the words that are coming up: high crime, racism, childcare. We got a lot happening here. Climate, access to care. Let's see. Work insecurity, COVID. Yeah, family. So it's, to me, it takes a little bit of the pressure off of ourselves, myself perhaps, in thinking, why do I feel a certain way? Why do I feel stressed out? Is there something wrong with me? And I think it's pretty clear that there's a lot of circumstances happening in the world around us that contribute to our stress and our anxiety and our overall mental health. So I thank you all for contributing your thoughts to that. I'm going to go ahead and ask specifically about the pandemic, because it has been such a big factor in the past few years that has impacted folks. And even though it feels like there's some relief coming out into the springtime and cases aren't as frequent or as severe, I think that there's still the residual of what we've been through, and certainly it's not entirely over, and some folks might actually still feel very concerned about it. So I'd like to ask, we'll start with Gavin with this one, how you think the pandemic has impacted our mental health.
Thank you, and hello everyone for even being here. I think it's always important to just have these topic of discussions because it allows us to be educated as well as allows us to just know what's going on in our communities. But I also want to correlate this to the first question too, because there's many factors that has impacted our mental health in so many different ways. And from the survey, I definitely could say racism is definitely one of those things that we all saw last year. With George Floyd's death and how it impacted the African American community as a Black man, with children. I was speaking to my wife, and I was like, we're gonna have to tell our children, our kids, that someone might not like them, or someone might find their skin color not the best looking thing for them that day. And it's like, how do you explain that to it? Your loved one is saying, listen, someone's not going to like you. Like, you're going to be hated by someone, or you're going to be affected. You're going to get affected by that. And it's, it's one of those conversations that is going to be hard to have. But through the pandemic, it allowed a lot of people to just recognize, like, hey, this is what's going on. This is something that is affecting anyone and everyone. It can affect everyone. But just racism is just one of those conversations. Homelessness, working and where I work, we've worked with an individual that lost his home last year and the beginning of last year. And till this year, he was actually able to find housing. But within that process, he actually had to pay for hotels that he was just putting out using his credit card. He was trying to figure out, how am I going to live day to day? How am I going to buy food? He's a disabled individual. So he said that he needed like certain things that we could never provide. So those little factors of one person just trying to use a hot plate just to cook a meal, where they're like, I just need something hot to eat today. But it's like, where do you take this individual when there's places that they can never go to? But just going back to that, that question is how it impacts us. It's so much layers to it, so much conversations that can come from it. We know that, children being isolated at home, they experience abuse from their parent or whoever. There's marital abuse. There's so many different things that has impacted us. And the data and the statistics that will come out from this will be pretty interesting to just see how you tell a whole nation to say, hey, stay home, be mindful of what you're doing, be safe. But then the other side of that, it's like when people are home, they're taken to drinking alcohol, or they're doing different things that affect their own mental health or their own physical being. So it's so many layers, which I think this topic, I think it definitely needs its own panel discussion, because it is so detailed and it's so impactful for everybody that listens. And just going back to the discussion on racism, I was speaking to someone and I saw a video, and I can't remember what it's called, but it actually spoke about suicide amongst African-American children. And it was because children that are in school were being bullied, and the parents thought everything was okay. They thought there was well. So they thought that their child was safe, but come to find out when they come home and then they see their child, hanging from a rope or whatever, it's the other layer of like, okay, this is what's happening. And so it's a difficult thing to see. It's a difficult thing to talk about, but mental health has been that biggest thing, I think, the next to the physical and the so much layers of, what the COVID had caused, but it's the mental health that I think was the second biggest factor in everything too.
Thank you for sharing all of that, Gavin. It was very helpful. I wonder if any of the other panelists have anything that you'd like to add, or even just to comment on some of the answers that we got from the audience in the poll, as Gavin did so eloquently.
I definitely think that during the experience of COVID, because so many people were seeking mental health. And this goes back to the poll too, the access to care and being able to actually connect with someone completely changed the game and made it, there was just this influx of people who really needed the support. And as we're still seeing now, the access to care isn't necessarily there.
No, there is not really. Definitely, there is not enough access. And the way is also, it's very interesting because when a person, for example, suffers cancer and you go to a cancer center, there is an attitude of compassion, right? And there are a lot of alternative services too. When a person goes to a hospital, let's say with insurance, of course, and receive cancer treatment, they have all these alternative treatments of meditations or acupuncture, or there's a lot of compassion and dedication. When a person, first of all, going to a community clinic, for services, people are overworked. The psychiatrists are only attending, providing service for 15 minutes. There's excess of medication as well. Therefore, the response to that mental health condition is so different, right? It's ostracized, the person is ostracized, there is no compassion, there is mistreatment. And that is for, let's say, many citizens have insurance or Medicaid, but there are also the undocumented citizens who are completely unable to access any service because they don't have insurance, or they go to community, there is not enough people speaking their languages, right? So it's just, it's even more difficult. Many people living in one room, many people in one room with children. So it's just like there is housing problems, lack of access of services, lack of language, to express your feelings. We can add on and on and on, and it never ends at this point,
I think it's important to just point out, maybe as like a seed of hope, planting a seed of hope for all of this, because the more we talk about it, it can get very, it can seem very daunting. But the county executive here in Ulster County, for those of you who weren't aware, made a proclamation about mental health, declaring May Mental Health Awareness Month, and really putting some statements out there about the county's commitment to mental health services. And so that at least gives us something to hold them to, not to say that they wouldn't carry through with it, but to really say, you acknowledge this and we want to help our community take better care of one another. So at least that's a good sign that that some of the folks that in the government are seeing the importance of this. Let's quick jump to another question, and then we'll take a little stretch break for everyone. So the thing that comes up for me sometimes is actually recognizing when somebody might be struggling with taking care of their mental health. How does that actually manifest? And so are there symptoms, signs that folks should look for to know if their mental health is being impacted, right? Because we can kind of lead these very busy lives, and it's not for 5 to 10 years down the road do we realize that we've been struggling with stress and anxiety that's now impacting us. So are there things that we can look for? And I'll ask Keziah to answer that one, if you would.
Sure. It's a great question. And the first thing I want to do, though, is actually piggyback a little bit off of something Selena was just bringing up in regard to stigma, because, as much as we know, you can't separate mental health from overall physical health, right? Our brains are attached to our bodies, and there really is no way to separate those things out. So the stigma is really important to address in order to have, effective conversations about this. So I just want to say that there is no more moral failing in having a mental health challenge than if you had asthma or a shellfish allergy. So in that context, we can definitely talk about signs and symptoms. The first thing that's important to know is just what the difference is between a sign and a symptom. So signs are things that essentially other people can see. They're observable, and other people generally are the ones that notice them. And symptoms are kind of an internal subjective experience. So a sign of a shellfish allergy would be hives. You can see them on somebody else, right? And a symptom might be like gastro pain, like stomach pain or something like that. For anxiety, a sign might be sweating or trembling, and a symptom could be like racing thoughts or fear that something horrible is about to happen. So those are a couple of examples of signs and symptoms, and it is you know, as has been discussed so far on the panel, the way these things present in people really varies. That has a lot to do with your life experience, your cultural lens, just kind of how you are in the world. So the general frame of reference that I give people is to really just like look for the extremes. So it's expected that we're going to have normal fluctuations in mood or how much we're sleeping or eating. The times to start paying attention to it is when it's like way over the top a lot or not very much at all. So if you're sleeping a lot or if you're not sleeping very much, if you're eating a lot or not eating very much, if you're kind of angry or depressed most days, most of the time, those would be things to look out for. And it is oftentimes something that comes with practicing some self-awareness around what you're generally like, you know, when you're feeling just kind of normal or good even, and compare, and then being able to identify the times that the extremes are coming up for you.
Very helpful. Any other panelists want to fill in anything else with respect to that question?
Yeah, I agree with Kasaya. You know, it just, some people live long life with chronic depression. So sometimes the symptom, the experience of that, right? It just almost is so ingrained in your personality or in your, that sometimes people are not as aware. They struggle, they drag themselves through the day. They think that they are tired. They are having pains and headaches and things like that. And sometimes it's hard, right, to recognize. And sometimes even the people who live with them, they say, oh, you are a hypochondriac, or you can, you're always complaining, because it is not a clear, really, it's not like an extreme depression. You can have dysthymia, right? That it's just like, it's a continuum that manifests, and you don't know that you just feel tired all the time. Do you understand? So it's just like, sometimes it's important to what we're doing, right? Providing information, because some people say, oh, maybe that's what I'm suffering, and they might not know because it has been for a long time. It's different when you have you know, that some relatives might be able to see if a teenager, you know, it's just like too speedy or too, then the parents can act. Do you understand? But there are some different symptoms that when they are acute are easy to recognize, but there are some very chronic. And anxiety, not necessarily you have to be a panic attack to suffer anxiety. You can be anxious all the time, generalized anxiety, right? That it's just part of who you are. It just requires time. And I would say we need to slow down a little bit to really perceive, right? And feel your life and connect what's going on right now. Suddenly you just bump into someone and tells you something, and then you recognize that becomes the moment of awareness that you can do something. But some people are not having that luxury to slow down, to perceive what's going on and feel what's going on in order to feel and to seek out help. You know, that mindfulness requires that slowness, but can we do it, right?
Yes, that too probably is deserving of its own special panel discussion to talk about that. Why don't we see if we have any questions from our audience? Katrina, do we have any questions for the panelists that have come in?
Yeah, so this is a question slash like somebody's situation that they're going through that I think it would be great if the panelists can sort of reflect on and give feedback about. I'll just read it if that's okay.
Sure.
I have a 37-year-old son who struggles with depression. He feels isolated, yet he chose to isolate. He has met with several different mental health providers, but only via Zoom. He feels that he needs to see someone face to face. He feels that access to quality care is very limited. I get upset with him because, in comparison to so many others, his problems seem minimal. He has insurance, he has an apartment, he has a part time job, but he seems overwhelmed by life in general.
Thank you, Katrina. Anyone on the panel feel like sharing responses, thoughts about that question and comment?
That's what we were talking at the beginning. Sometimes this is an example of what I said at the beginning, right? You know, that a parent, a spouse, right, start really reacting to that condition and is seeking out help.
Selena, we're losing your feed again.
Okay.
I think you're
maybe-
breaking up again, so maybe turning your video off.
Yeah, well, obviously, find a good practitioner to really trust, because that's important, right? Like, create a relationship, and through that relationship, therapeutic relationship, to trust and to feel that you're going to be seen, that you're going to be perceived, and you're going to be able to talk about your issues and understood. But I don't know in particular the situation, but trust issues are very important, right? You know, it's just like if you go through a process where you've been seeing many therapies and it didn't work out, right? You know, then you lose a little bit of hope. So like any other relationship, you have to be lucky as well, right? To be able to find the one that can actually help you, you know, like any other relationship.
Anyone else want to comment on the question, Keziah?
Yeah, I just first want to say I think it's great that this person is here with us in the audience and is concerned enough about your son to ask the question. It sounds like there is a lot of hope in what you're talking about, actually. Your son has been seeking support. Oftentimes people isolate and don't try. And so I just want to point out that strength, that there are attempts, and oftentimes it takes multiple attempts to find, as Selena's talking about, to find a provider that you connect with. Just like finding a friend or a partner, not everybody that you meet is going to be the perfect match for you or to serve your needs. And so I think that it's great that there have been attempts. I think there are some clear asks for what your son is looking for, specifically in-person treatment, which is something we often hear, that people are just, there are some people that have absolutely loved the shift of our field into things being virtual and telemedicine. And there are some people that just really can't engage that way. So there are providers who are seeing people in person. So I would recommend starting there and trying to find, you know, to honor that request that treatment is in person, and to start with another provider that will be able to see your son in person. There's also a lot of support for family members, because it is a very challenging position to be in, to watch someone else struggle with any diagnosis, mental health or physical, you know, otherwise. And so it is also going to be just as important for you to get the kind of support that would be most helpful to you, so that you can help him the best. So one resource I would say for that would be NAMI. I don't know if someone else is able to put that in the chat, but it's the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and it's support specifically for family members and loved ones of someone who's struggling with a mental health challenge.
Thank you for that, Keziah. Gavin, did you want to add something?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Selena and Keziah, for just sharing that, because mental health providers are absolutely the key part in addressing a lot of things that someone might be challenged with. And also want to bring in the peer relationship as well, because I'm not sure who or what your son has done, but if you're able to at least identify something that he was engaged with, through his life, you could probably find someone that could relate with him. If he was a police officer, if he was a medic, if he was something, within a profession, you could possibly find someone that has been in that same profession, as well as, allow them to be that conduit to help your son. Because from my experience, I've seen that 9 out of 10 of the referrals, actually 9 out of 10 of the referrals that actually come to us has been from family members and friends, not the person themselves, but those family members and friends. When they do make the referrals, when they bring them to our office, it's been that key part in getting them the services, because they'll say no 20 times until that person brings them to that location that will help them. So if you're able to at least find a peer or somebody that can at least identify with what he's experiencing, it'll also be a good conduit to at least allow your son to know that he is supported. There are people that experience the same things, as well as allow them to be that another voice for them, a voice of reason, because the kids don't want to listen to their parents sometimes, and 37-year-old, might not want to listen, but that could also be another way for you just to get someone to say, hey, this is something that you see, this is something that can be helped, and this is something that can be addressed with the right individuals that's on your side.
Thank you, Gavin. We're gonna take a little break to practice something that was mentioned earlier by, I think, Selena, about the idea of slowing down and giving yourself time. This is hard to do. I think in today's world, because of work, family, there's just always so many things that we're overscheduled. And so this is just a reminder that it could be literally 1 minute of your day where you just pause and give yourself a moment to tune into yourself and to notice what's going on in your body and to just take a few breaths. So we're just going to do that now. And I invite you to stretch. If you'd like to stretch, you can raise the arms up and kind of lean from one side to the other, sometimes making fists, clenching them tightly, scrunching up your face, and then relaxing it, letting it go, moving the shoulders. You can get up. If you're working in an office, you can get up, stand up, twist a little bit. Just do something to check in with your body and see how the body feels. And then right now, we'll just take 3 nice deep breaths. And if you'd like to make a sound with your exhale, sometimes that feels really good. If that doesn't feel comfortable, you don't have to. But let's just take 3 nice deep breaths. So seeing if you can try to do little things for yourself like that throughout the day, it can make an impact. But I'm going to ask our panelists, we'll ask the question about, in their opinion, what are some of the things that we can do to take better care of our mental health, our well-being. Let's see. Who wants to start with that one? I guess maybe Allie, we haven't heard from you in a while. Do you want to answer that one?
Sure. So I think something I see a lot, and especially even like personally, like I'm like, talk to someone who you trust, and it doesn't necessarily have to be someone with a license or somebody with the background. Like, feel connected and supported to at least one other person where you feel like you can be open and honest about how you're feeling. Community connectivity and connecting to others, that's like a huge piece and huge factor in mental health in general.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would recommend as well, that if you are working very much on your own and like with a computer, to make a night of bill, really, just leave, take a few minutes to go for a walk, to even say to a neighbor, connect some way with another human being without having to do a big story. Do you understand? It's just like when we met Theresa, right? And we say hello on the street and we say, how you doing? Or maybe saying hello to the coffee maker or the barista. Just human connection in any way will actually help increase your serotonin or any kind of a chemical, because we are designed to connect. So we can say hello to the mailman, with just go for a walk, be exposed to sunlight, and try to be somehow aware of what you ingest as well. Drink lots of water. It doesn't have to be always telling the big story to someone. And if that person doesn't exist, then you are doomed. You understand? So I really think little steps in any way can help, and mostly some type of connection, or maybe spiritual if you want to go to church or to listen to a priest or a rabbi or whatever religion you are connected with, or some podcast that will say something nice. Try to connect with some positive experiences that doesn't have to be grandiose. It can be simple, but they make a huge impact in our well-being.
Anyone else have anything you'd like to add? I know we have a couple of questions. Yeah, go ahead, Keziah.
Yeah, I'll be quick. So the first, I have two thoughts. One is that prioritizing sleep is incredibly important. If you're not getting quality sleep, your body isn't having a chance to recover, restore, and you're just not going to make the best decisions when you're throughout the day. I certainly don't, and it's a common experience. So prioritizing your sleep, that might mean talking to your primary care doctor if that's something you're really struggling with, about options. Sometimes it's just helpful for people to have like the same routine every time it comes to sleep time. So that would be going to bed around the same time every night, aiming for at least 8 hours, if not a little bit more, and kind of doing exactly the same thing as you lead up to bed. It triggers your brain that you're getting ready for sleep. And so it's really useful to have a nighttime routine that helps you calm down. And then the other thought that I wanted to share is actually about breathing. So I'm glad that we had a chance to just do that. Oftentimes we're encouraged to take deep breaths, and that is incredibly helpful. And the exhale is actually more important, because when you're taking a deep breath and you're not exhaling longer than your inhale, you're triggering your brain that something's wrong, and to prepare for fight, flight, or freeze. So these stress hormones get released when you're actually intending to relax. So a very simple trick is to just focus on making your exhale longer. That actually triggers your brain of the opposite, that you're safe and that you can restore and rest. It triggers that part of your brain to restore and rest. So if it feels good to take a deep breath, definitely do it, and focus on making sure your exhale is longer.
Wonderful information, Keziah. Thank you.
I want to add something about social media and technology and being connected with Instagram and Facebook. That also, it's something to become aware, right? How much time you dedicate to gossiping and learning about the life of celebrities and things like that sometimes doesn't really do any good. It just becomes almost an addiction, right? That we want to know more and more and more, what about this and who is married with whom, and sometimes it's so excess information that our brain cannot process the overload, right? And that also is like, we can do little things, decreasing a little bit, about the amount of information that we process, when it's not necessary. I'm not saying that when it's necessary, you have to study, you have to
We lost you again, Selena, but I think it's a good point. because there's also the social media aspect of the comparing ourselves to other people that can really impact our overall self-esteem and mental health. So we really could do webinars every week on different subjects related to mental health, social media being one of them. I know we have some questions, Katrina. Did you want to share them with the panelists?
Sure. So the next question is, anxiety is on the rise in young adults. Is anxiety and depression being overdiagnosed these days? What are non-medication approaches to anxiety and depression, especially since access to mental health services is so difficult now and not everyone wants to go see a therapist?
Big question. Who wants to start?
I always can start, but I don't want to take the place of someone else. So
you can go ahead. You can start the answer. We'll
you know, it makes a lot of sense, you know, what this person is saying, because, you know, it just, young people are suffering a lot as a result of, let's say, maybe a student started school, college, and has been isolated, you know, doing virtual learning, and the news, the pandemic, the hopelessness, you know, these are young people that are looking to the future for you know, trying to be hopeful and see how they can be useful to society. So, but I would say, you know, Brené Brown, she talks, you know, she's a researcher on shame and vulnerability. And again, we are all vulnerable at this point. She says creativity not channeled can metastasize, right? So I would recommend a young person can really find do party or create, right? Congregate with other friends to create something together. Obviously, walks, meditation, if it's possible, is accessible, using some of the applications that are really good, like Timer, Calm. You know, many of the young people, they like to use applications. There are a lot of things that can be useful in order to really go through the day and check with our bodies, you know, how am I feeling, right? And maybe take time to connect with music or something. There's so much out there in terms of helping the brain to relax, right? Maybe just, again, I would recommend really slowing down and going a little bit into these learning to become mindful, because learning to become mindful is also a practice, right? You know, when you slow down, things happen, show up, and sometimes it's sitting a little for a few minutes with discomfort. Meditation is a good practice, you know, to sit at the beginning for the first few minutes. It's always discomfort, right? And then after that discomfort, we go through a period where I start feeling a little bit better. So again, walking, if they don't go to a therapist, you know, just try to you know, try to congregate and do something creative with some other friends as well, right? Try channel creativity in some way, planting, gardening, listening music, and meditating is possible, exercising, walking, but it has to be something that you create a willful a thought, right? To just finish, because always the beginning is hard. The beginning is always hard to really start. So, you know.
Thank you, Selena. Anybody else would like to add anything to that answer?
Yeah, I can add a couple of thoughts. So some of the things that I already mentioned about the paying attention to your breathing, making sure you're exhaling longer. Also working on gratitude listing, which is, and you actually want to do the writing. So when you're writing something down, it triggers your brain that it's really important to pay attention to. And the more you pay attention to a particular type of thing, the more your brain looks to reinforce that. So even when you don't feel like it, I can tell you that I've done it before and times that it was the absolute last thing I wanted to do. thinking about things that bring you joy, or make you feel fulfilled, or even any simple thing that you can feel grateful for, writing it out helps your brain to recognize it more often. So similar to the way to what Selena was talking about with mindfulness, it is a practice, and it's and there are certainly tools and skills that can be used outside of medication for depression and anxiety. I'm not sure that I would agree that it's being overdiagnosed. Our country, our world has gone through a collective trauma, and so there is going to be fallout from that. And anxiety is incredibly common right now because of everything that we've been through. So there are lots of tools. Medication is one of them. If that's not something that feels like the right fit, there are other skills to learn. And similar to the ones I've reviewed and Selena's talking about, there's a website I'd like to share that is it's directed towards people who are having suicidal thoughts and giving them some tools and skills to manage those thoughts. But it certainly is something that even if you're not having those thoughts would be helpful. There are videos that review specific skills to practice that are evidence-based, which just means there's been a lot of research about them to show that they're effective. So it's called nowmattersnow.org. And when you go to that website, you can pick and choose from different videos to watch that explain skills to practice. And then also the person talks about how they've used that skill. So there's life experience in the videos. That's really helpful.
Excellent information, Keziah. I'd like to hear from the audience or anyone here who's connected. We're going to do another poll question. And so you should be able to go right back to your screen, or again, you can pop it into the chat. So if you're texting or you're using the screen, name someone or something that you go to when you need support. So this could be an activity that you do that we've talked about. It could be a person that you rely on. So anything at all that you do to support your overall mental health. And we spend time in nature, family, friends, hiking, yoga, taking a day off from work. That sounds like a great one.
Yeah, excellent.
Pets, that's a big one. 12-step, that's great. Going to the gym, sleeping. These are all great. Yeah. Good answers. Perhaps inspiring to others, walking, exercising. There's lots of options out there. Wonderful. Playing. Ooh, that's a good one. Sometimes we adults forget to play. And I think that's an important, both for physical and mental health. All right. So I think we have at least one more question from the audience that I'd like to get to. Katrina, are you able to share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. The question was, how difficult has it been to provide more attainable and accessible mental health therapy to the community of Black, Brown, and Hispanic communities?
Who feels like starting that one?
I could, I don't mind.
Gavin?
Yeah.
Great,
So
Gavin.
actually, I could say that for just what I'm doing here in Ulster, it's actually been a hit or miss on my end, because someone from African American or Hispanic community, they hardly reach out to us regarding mental health challenges or whatever, how they want to label it. And I see that because it goes to comfort level. It goes to the things that how we grew up. I mean, for me, I come from a Caribbean family, and my father told me one thing, he always ingrained that for me, I have to be strong. I have to, do X, Y, and Z. I lived a life of structure. And within that structure, there was no place that I say, hey, I need help or wherever it is. And I think for a lot of us that, that do live in a community, that is not really ingrained in us at a young age. So when we do get older and we are experiencing that challenge of mental health, when we're experiencing those things that we're like, okay, we need someone to speak to, sometimes we don't know how to say that we need help because it wasn't something that was really brought to our, to a discussion at home or to a discussion, outside when you're talking to friends. It's like we've been, I like the nature versus nurture, because when when you think about how you grow up, you experience so much things that it could help you at an older age. And then if you miss out on those different things, those skills, those conversations that can really help you, it does affect you when you get older, because then you don't know who to talk to, you don't know who to reach out to. So from my experience now in my position, I don't see that much of that here. But I do actually speak to other friends that actually live in suburban areas and also live in other areas, and they do say that it is a hit or miss as well there too, because those conversations aren't really discussed in the family to say, hey, when you need the help, reach out, get the help, talk to the individual. And that's why I go back to that. The movie is called A Different Cry. That's what it's called. And it's the movie about documentary about the African-American children committing suicide. And it's specifically for that, because they don't know how to express that. And, the families didn't know how to have that conversation. So I think for anyone, in a minority culture, community, whatever, how I want to put it, I think the conversation has to be with the parents, explaining to the children that it's okay to talk about those issues, those things that's bothering you. It's okay to, be open to talk about what's going on. It's okay to know that, you can cry, you could feel upset, you could be mad, but just know that there's someone to talk to. And if that parent isn't there, then, find a social worker, find a counselor, find someone that you could confide with that can, best help you express your feelings. But it definitely starts from from someone just encouraging that person just to be open, just to feel like they can say or speak to someone.
Thank you for that, Gavin. Anybody else want to comment on that question?
I just quickly want to mention an initiative that we have been doing in Ulster County Department of Mental Health, which is where I work. And I'm not sure that we've been able to identify that there is any kind of change to accessing care specifically for that community, because there has been such incredible difficulties in accessing care for everyone right now, which really seem to be rooted in workforce issues. So one of the things that we've been doing, because we do really want to hear about how we can be doing better for the BIPOC community in Ulster County, is hosting what are called community conversations, where some staff from the Department of Mental Health and some other departments are represented, who just really want to hear from the BIPOC community about how we can do better and what kind of challenges specifically are making it difficult to access care. Often what we hear is kind of what Gavin is talking about with the cultural barriers, that people grew up hearing that you don't talk about these kinds of things outside of your house. So, I just wanted to put it out there that we want to hear from people, and we would love suggestions. And we are continuing to hold them. We've had 3 so far, and we plan on continuing. So we would love you to come.
And where can folks find out about those? Is it on the county's website, on the Department of Mental Health website?
Yeah, it's posted in a number of places, on our Instagram page, on our county website. It's often posted by the county executive's office on their Instagram page. We also flyer, and it gets pushed out in different ways in the community.
Thank you. I want to be mindful of the time. It is 6:30, and So it's time for us to wrap up a little bit, but I wanted to give the panelists just a last opportunity if there's any final short words. I know, Allie, you did put something in the chat that I think you should share with everyone because I like the idea of it, that anyone else can add to. You want to share that, Allie?
Sure. So, and this, I also learned this recently. So someone had said nature was really helpful for them to de-stress. I'm also a person who really loves to go in nature to de-stress. And so were studies done that showed that people had like an increase of serotonin after smelling soil and dirt. And I just find that fascinating. And also, I know that the teenagers love to say touch grass. So I'm like, no, really, go touch grass. You'll feel better.
Trees, right? Nature, this is type of therapy. I just read a book and they have specialized people. I'm going to stop because can you see me? Can you hear me? Yeah, so I would say nature is definitely, the intention of embracing nature it's just definitely, and we should really read the books that the Japanese have written about forest therapy, that we have so much forest, except that we have a lot of lime around here, but, embracing trees or mentally embracing trees, can be very healing. Definitely. We know that each time we go into the forest, we start exhaling, right? Just like, at least it happens to me that when I go for a while, walking 20 minutes, I start like breathing, like I can see that my relaxation start happening, when I start walking in nature. So it's just that awareness of what happens in the body when you are walking, instead of, I see a lot of people walking, but talking on the phone while they are walking on the path. And I would say, don't do it. It's just not, it's better to be connected to the present moment, right? And to be aware of what happens in the body when you are walking, instead of just constantly having stimuli, especially if you are a very anxious person. It's better not to, we crave, people with anxiety crave, more and more and more, but sometimes it's important to just really say no, and try to connect with, right now is springtime, the music are the birds, right? And the sounds of nature. This is the music, and I will recommend that if you go in nature, be in nature, not in some other place. Try to be in one place and be present. I think once you become aware of the benefits, it just adds on and on and on, right? Just simple practices that can have a huge impact in our, neurochemicals.
Yeah. Thank you, Selena. Gavin or Keziah, any final thoughts that you want to share, Gavin?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with nature. One of the things that we do here, which we always encourage everybody to do, is definitely go outside, especially now the weather is getting better. A lot of individuals, our staff and community, they actually go ride bikes, they walk. We encourage a lot of that social activities. And also this week I played chess with a veteran. I haven't played chess since high school. And sitting down for 2 hours, I didn't even know 2 hours passed until we're like taking pieces. But those are just different things that we could find avenues of just connecting. And even if those individuals that are don't want to go outside, you can actually do these things on your phone where you play chess with someone, or you find different ways just to connect. So we could use technology as a positive instead of those negatives of how Selena mentioned, like it can be a rabbit hole of looking through TikTok and YouTube videos. But if you just find different ways to just utilize those those different things that's right in front of us, it can actually absolutely be a positive connection for us, just reaching out and talking and connecting with one another. So yes, I definitely say nature, and if you can't, then I'll say use technology positively.
Thank you. Keziah, any final words from you?
Sure. So the first thing that I want to say is that there is hope. And so anyone who's not sure about that right now, I really want you to hear that from me. And prioritize joy. I mean, it's kind of what people are talking about here, that everyone just talked about. And it's really important. You've mentioned playfulness before. Whatever it is that brings you joy, prioritize doing that as often as you can. That's what I would have to share.
Thank you. we did put together a resource document that you can find on Live Well Kingston's website. So if you go to livewellkingston.org and you go to the Heal Well Focus Team page, you can find a blog post that lists the Mental Health Awareness Month, this event, and resources there. We have a lot of resources in this community, including resources that will offer free care services, wellness services. And so there's a lot out there. Please definitely go check out that, that blog post. And finally, we are organizing a community walk. We thought, and the idea of being in nature and connecting to one another, we are going to get together on the Saturday morning of May 21st, and we're going to meet at 10 a.m. at the Catskill Railroad in the Hannaford parking lot. You should be able to find it there. We'll be gathering there, and then we're going to walk the Midtown Linear Park. It'll be a very leisurely walk, so you don't have to be a super athlete in any way. And it's just an opportunity to get outside and connect with community members. Of course, we can talk about mental health. We can talk about joy. We can talk about anything you want together.
Today is Saturday the 21st.
It's Saturday, May 21st. And we'll be gathering at 10 a.m. And information about that will soon be up on the Live Well Kingston website, on their events page, and also on their Facebook page. And so I'm so grateful to the panelists for making time for this really wonderful and inspiring conversation. And thanks to everyone who joined in the audience. We don't want this to be the end of the conversation. We really took it upon ourselves at Heal Well to dedicate our energy towards mental health, mental hygiene this year. And so if there are other ways that you would like us to support the community or continue the conversation, we're happy to hear from you. And with that, we'll say good night. There's still some sunshine out there, so maybe you can get outside and enjoy some of today's beautiful weather. Thanks so much, everyone.
Happy May 5th, día 5 de mayo.